Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore once again facing questions about his background and whether he has strong ties to Maryland. While Moore says he's been clear about not being born in Charm City, A Baltimore Life is a huge part of his book, The Other Wes Moore, which tells a parallel life story of a man of the same name, but who's now in prison for murder. Recently on WBAL radio, Moore says these latest questions are an attack on his upbringing.
This is an attempt to separate me from my childhood, to separate me from my past, to separate me from my path, which I've been very clear and transparent about.
Well, Fox 45 has been digging into Moore's background, finding some inaccuracy in how he's allowed himself to be presented. And joining us this morning to weigh in is PR and crisis communications expert Doug Eldridge with Achilles PR. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
When it comes to Moore's service and his medals, he was introduced in national media a few times as having a Bronze Star, with Moore seeming to agree. But the Army says he does not have a Bronze Star. What do you make of him agreeing, and how would you advise a client to respond?
Well, this is certainly a gray zone. There's a degree of ambiguity around this because Moore, to my knowledge, has not come out and fervently said that is inaccurate. I was indeed a recipient of the Bronze Star, nor has he on the record made a correction. Now, there are a couple of splits in the road here, and I should say from the outset, I have a unique perspective here, not only from a crisis comm standpoint, but my father was the recipient of a Bronze Star, Distinguished Flying Cross, Legion of Merit. He's buried in Arlington National Cemetery overlooking the Pentagon. So I do have a unique perspective here. The last thing that you want as a candidate, or as a decorated veteran for that matter, is any inaccuracies or inflated achievements related to your record of service. Now, the Bronze Star was unquestionably one of the most prestigious achievements that one can be awarded or rewarded for their valor and heroism in a war zone. So if, in fact, Mr. Moore was the recipient of this, then his team should come out and challenge the statement released by the Army. If they're not, this is an easy course correction. Because if he's never gone on the record proactively saying he was the recipient, then simply say, it's come to our attention that others have suggested, inferred, or outright claimed that I'm the recipient. I'm proud of my military record. I believe it stands on its own. I was, in fact, not a recipient of the Bronze Star. I'm proud of my service of record, and more importantly, those that I had the pleasure and privilege of serving with. That's a statement you make one time, you stand on it, and you move forward. The ambiguity is the fact that neither has been directly addressed, and that's the problem.
And this was kind of getting into my next question, because he did not interview with our reporter Mackenzie Frost, but his campaign sent a statement basically calling her investigation a smear campaign. So should they be handling this, or should we be hearing directly from Moore? I think you just answered that, but still.
Yeah, at this point, I think you're spot on. I think you need to hear from Moore, right? It's risen to the level that you can no longer delegate this to your spokesman. The question regarding his roots to Baltimore was addressed subsequently by a publicist from the publisher, saying in an earlier version of the book, attribution to direct Baltimore roots slipped through the cracks. Moore provided a correction. Subsequent copies have reflected that. But why was that allowed through in the first place, right? This is somebody that you want attention to detail, specificity, and precision of execution. So too is the case when it comes to the ambiguity, which is confusion, lack of specifics or clarity regarding the Bronze Star. Now, this apparent dossier, that's opposition research. This is what politics is predicated on. It's finding the chinks in the armor so that it can create a self-inflicted wound. And the last thing that Moore or any other candidate on that stage here coming up is going to want is their own words, actions, deeds, or non-deeds used against them. He needs to come out in a one-time statement. It can't be released via publicists. It needs to be looking at a camera, preferably in a non-friendly format where he can stand up and show his valor, not just on the battlefield or in the boardroom, but at the podium, facing his would-be constituents. This is not an opposition. This is an opportunity. And if he plays it right, this is a chance to absolutely shine like that purported Bronze Star.
And there are a few months until the primary. It's coming up in July. So anything else you think he should do moving forward in his campaign?
Clarity, absolute lack of ambiguity, and take control of the narrative. You've been playing off of your back foot with this. You've allowed others to perhaps and purportedly, I don't want to be clear, I don't know this for a fact, none of us do because he hasn't addressed it head on, allowed others to suggest or infer that you've received it. You've been on your back foot, hoping to have that plausible deniability of, well, I never said that outright. Come on, man. Take the wheel. You've commanded those in the combat zone. Let's do the same now in the political forum. Lead from the front. Have a succinct, unambiguous, clear voice. Show your strength of leadership by being a person of the people. Say, listen, I understand that mistakes happen. Obviously, some mistakes were made in my campaign. Moving forward, all responsibility falls on my shoulders. I'll be leading from the front. If you have any questions, come to me directly. Suggestions, questions, or anything else that you might want to see or hear. But the truth begins and ends with me. So let me set the record straight. That's awkward, but only has to happen one time. This is no longer the sort of Damocles hanging over your head. Get rid of it, move on, control the narrative. Awkward, but easy.
All right, Doug Eldridge, thank you for your insight this morning.
Thank you for having me.